And usually this will get posted in a week or so to our YouTube channel, and it also gets notified on our webpage. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dennis Arguelles, who's the SoCal Director for the National Parks Conservation Association. And tonight he's going to update us on ongoing plans for the Rim of the Valley project. So welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Snowdy, and thank you to the Society for inviting me to chat with you today about the Rim of the Valley. Yeah, first of all, wonderful job pronouncing my last name. A lot of folks have trouble with it, so thanks for that, Snowdy. And yeah, it's wonderful to see some familiar faces today. If you don't know me, again, I work for the National Parks Conservation Association. Just a little on that, we are an independent nonprofit organization, privately funded through grants. We don't get any federal funding, and we're not affiliated with the National Park Service, which is what allows us to be the advocate for the National Park system. We spend much of our time, I spend much of my time during the day, basically being a lobbyist for our parks, trying to engage congressional offices and trying to mobilize the public in support of our national parks. And NPCA was created about 3 years after the National Park Service because the first National Park Service director realized that if our fledgling national park system was going to not just survive, but thrive and grow, it needed an engaged public, and it needed a citizenry that cared about these spaces. And NPCA was created to help activate those voices. So yeah, we're here today to talk about the Rim of the Valley, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let me pull up my PowerPoint. I know it usually takes a minute or a second or so for this to come up. Hopefully folks are seeing it.
Guys, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, needs to be, yeah, slideshow, okay. Yeah,
yep.
Looks great.
Look good.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Great.
I'll only interrupt, Dennis, if the sound is funky or something weird happens, okay?
Okay, yeah, please do. Sometimes my internet connection can be kind of spotty, so.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, it's really a pleasure to chat with you about the Rim of the Valley, a project that I care about deeply, both as a representative of the National Parks Conservation Association, but also just personally. I live in Glendale. Some of the open spaces surrounding my neighborhood are going to be directly impacted by the Rim of the Valley. And today I'm just going to talk to you about a little bit about what the Rim of the Valley is, what it could mean for the region, talk to you a little bit about where it's at right now. It's probably something that's been on your radar for, I mean, we've been working on it for a decade. So it's been on a lot of your radars for, possibly just as long. And folks are probably wondering, well, what are the prospects? Where is it at, particularly in this political climate? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the threats to our national parks and get into that a little bit, since that's kind of obviously a more immediate matter right now. But yes, the Rim of the Valley, just briefly, let me pull up this map. So let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about when we say Rim of the Valley. On this map, as you can see on the lower left here, we have the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. It's about 150,000 acres. And the Rim of the Valley is, hopefully my cursor is working, are these lands here in yellow. This is about 118,000 acres. This is primarily open space already protected at the local level, and it's the lands that the National Park Service recommends be included in the expanded boundaries. And the study which resulted in these recommendations took place starting around 2011, was finished about 2015 or 16. The original acreage was much larger. What we have in front of us now is basically those lands where the Park Service felt they could be most effective. It's lands that, again, already protected at the local level. A lot of them are state park, MRCA properties, City of Glendale, Burbank, LA County. And it's where the Park Service can be most effective. And it's those places that are critical to the health of the current Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. And I'll talk a little bit more about connectivity and related issues in a bit. But just to give you an idea of some of the places that are here, a lot of you folks know this region, so you're familiar with a lot of these places. Santa Rosa Valley Park, Rocky Peak Park, the Verdugo Mountains, 14 square miles of some pretty amazing habitat. There's a small mountain lion population there, lots of deer, but only tenuously connected to the Sangre Mountains, so somewhat isolated. The Arroyo Seco, which travels down from the Sangre Mountains all the way into downtown LA, and includes places like Ernest Debs Regional Park, a small urban park right off the 110 freeway, just 300 acres, but enough habitat to sustain a small bobcat population. And then, of course, Griffith Park, which, as we know, was the home of P-22 for, nearly 8 years. 4,000 acres in the middle of the city, but yet enough natural habitat that you have some thriving wildlife there. And you folks are probably familiar with some of these other areas, the Santa Susana Mountains, obviously. What's not included in this expansion is this area right in here. This is the Santa Susana Field Labs. I don't need to get into the controversies there, but it was decided that space needed to just have, needed to resolve its issues, its conflicts on its own, and if those do get resolved in the future, then possibly it could be added to the boundaries of the park later. So that's basically what we're talking about in terms of the areas that could be affected. But then what does the rim of the valley actually do? And that's where we're basically trying to replicate the success the National Park Service has already had in the current Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. The Park Service just brings capacities and competencies and resources that aren't available at the local level. They're able to draw on a national pool of scientific data and expertise, and are just able to bring resources that can significantly enhance the management of these lands at the local level. And so what are some of these actual capacities? Well, wildlife research and management. We only know what we know about our local mountain lion population because of the research of the National Park Service. They've been trapping and tagging and tracking mountain lions now for nearly a quarter of a century. That information has helped us understand the health of the population, the corridors they use to move throughout the region, and the issues that they're facing, including inbreeding, poisoning from rodenticides, and just overcrowding, and just a lack of habitat for the population. The Park Service has also done things like worked on eradicating the red swamp crayfish, which is an invasive species, and taking over some of the streams in the range. They've had success reintroducing the red-legged frog, an endangered species, to a couple places in the range. And then, of course, they do a lot of work tracking, coyotes, bobcats, understanding their movement through the region, also understanding the impact that rodenticides and other poisons have on their long-term survival. So this is critical research. This is world-class research that no other agency, at the local level at least, can match, and something the Park Service brings, and something that will use to inform the planning, development, and ultimate construction of the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing on the 101 freeway at Liberty Canyon. Now, this is a rendering before construction began, but if you've been there lately, it's getting pretty close to this. I think they're starting to work on the vegetation, the native vegetation that's going to be, seeded throughout the pass, and it's come together, fairly soon. I think it's going to open in sometime next year. But what is the data that the Park Service actually brought to this project and other information that helps us understand wildlife in the region? And so this is data that's about 10 years old, but these data points, the different colors represent a specific mountain lion, and this demonstrates the movement of their movement through the region. You can see that basically the current Santa Monica Mountains NRA is just saturated. If you're out there hiking, know that there are mountain lions using that same terrain, possibly right where you just walked. And you can see how there's a population here, and again, these are just the mountain lions they've collared, so their population is bigger than this. But you can see how compacted it is in this area. If you think about this poor guy, this yellow dot here, it's unclear if he started or she started in the west or the east, but they probably were forced out of the area they were in by some more dominant mountain lions. Probably had to make a quick dash across this region, and then are trying to find a way out. They're basically trying to find ways to escape and disperse. And then in this area, there are populations where they're trying to get into this area, and they could bring some much needed genetic diversity to the population here, which is becoming inbred. But again, the barrier of the 101 freeway and other development just creates this untenable situation for the population. And these maps just show this in a little more detail, how dire the situation is. Again, on the top here, you have just a completely impacted mountain lion population and range. And you can see in these bottom maps where they're trying to disperse. They want to get outside this area, but once they get up against the 101 freeway and other barriers, they're just trapped. And then up here again is a separate population that's trying to get into the area. Again, could bring some genetic diversity, but again, also facing the barriers. So that's obviously critical research that the Park Service brings to the management to the management of these of our local landscapes. Obviously, their ability to work on habitat protection and restoration is also critical. We know that building wildlife bridges, for instance, like the Annenberg crossing, they're obviously very helpful, but without the native vegetation, to kind of encourage wildlife to move through the region, you're still going to see a lot of habitat, a lack of habitat connectivity and a lack of movement of wildlife through the region. And one of the things the Park Service has been successful in doing in the current NRA is eliminating, fountain grass and giant canes, some of the worst invasives that we see in our region, and bringing back a lot of the native vegetation and natural habitat that our wildlife needs. And I wanted to take you on kind of a 30-year trip on some tremendous success the Park Service has had in doing this work. And so let's start with this slide. This is more than 30 years ago. This is the Rancho Sierra Vista area of the NRA, just west of Thousand Oaks and just south of the 101 freeway. It's an area at this time that was highly neglected, probably grazed excessively over the decades. There's some dumping taking place in this area. And you can't see it. Let's see if I can get my cursor back. But there is actually a riparian corridor, a seasonal stream or creek that flows through this area, but you would not know from this picture. So the Park Service came in and decided that they wanted to make a concerted effort to restore the habitat in this area. So come 2022, they started by basically building out a native plant nursery in this area here. And this nursery would go on to not just support restoration in this area, but throughout the park. And as we can see, by 2005, you can see that the nursery is fully operational. And you can see that they're already seeing success along this riparian corridor in restoring some native vegetation. And this just gets better through the years. Here's 2007, 2011, 12, 15, 18, and now 19. That's the last photo I have, but obviously a tremendous success story and a demonstration that the Park Service just brings capacities and expertise that we need to replicate throughout the region. And so what else does the Park Service bring? Well, it obviously brings assistance with recreation in terms of for recreational planning, trail maintenance, trail development, and obviously that brings public health benefits to local communities. It does a lot of education with local youth. This group here is their Summer Samo Youth Program, which basically helps provide kind of an entryway for young people to get involved in conservation and possibly make it a career vocation. They do a lot of educational work, like in the top here. This is a training and a pamphlet that they have on the rodenticides and the damage they can do to our local food chain. And yeah, they just do tremendous work. They have a mobile visitor center. You'll see them at different festivals and at different parks. The education that they do in the region, the information they bring to the public is just really invaluable. So where are we in terms of trying to make the Rim of the Valley a reality? Well, we have two very good champions. Now, Senator Adam Schiff, who as a congressman championed the Rim of the Valley, it's been a legislative priority for him for over a decade. He has introduced legislation this year on the Senate side, and then his counterpart in the House, who occupies the seat that he once held, Representative Laura Friedman, is carrying the legislation on the House side. Laura Friedman, her district includes parts of Glendale, Burbank, and a little bit of LA. And we're lucky to have these two congressional champions so firmly behind this project. Now, having said that, obviously these folks are Democrats. They don't have a whole lot of leverage right now in this Congress, and frankly, we don't see the prospects for this legislation. We don't see the prospects for this legislation passing in this Congress as very good, and that's unlike some of the previous Congresses. You know, this will be the fifth Congress that this legislation has been introduced. It was first introduced by Congressman Schiff and Senator at the time Feinstein in 2017, and has been reintroduced every Congress since, so every other year. It came very close in some previous years, including some years under the Biden administration. Because Democrats don't have much leverage, because they don't control any of the houses in Congress or the administration, we see it as most probably unlikely in this Congress. But you know, it doesn't mean we don't work on it. It doesn't mean that there isn't still a possibility. Usually, historically, if at least one of the houses in Congress or one of the branches of government was controlled by the Democrats, we were successful in getting some new parks created. And that was included the last year of President Obama's administration, when both houses were controlled by Congress, but we were able to get some new parks created through using the Defense Authorization Act and kind of attaching it to some other critical legislation. So, you know, we're always looking for ways to try to get this done, and we never give up. And despite who's in power, we're going to continue pushing with your help. And, as far as what we do as NPCA, we just try to spend a lot of time creating congressional champions for our work. This photo on the left is an aerial tour we did with Congressman Whitesides from the Santa Clarita Valley. We flew over the Rim of the Valley. We used the opportunity to help educate him on what's at stake. And he had a lot of questions, so I feel like he actually did learn quite a bit on that tour. And at the top right here is his predecessor, Congressman Mike Garcia, who actually from Santa Clarita, but a Republican who supported the Rim of the Valley and who actually sponsored his own legislation to try to make it happen while he was in Congress. So we spent a lot of our time really trying to, strengthen these congressional champions. Now, I do need to spend a little time talking about the threats that our parks are currently facing, because, if we don't have a Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, we're definitely not going to have a Rim of the Valley. And that's literally what we're facing right now. The parks are facing an existential crisis. It seems so long ago that we were dealing with Elon Musk, but the implications of his Doge actions are still being felt. As you can see here, park staffing is down 25% since January. And that's on top of park staffing already being down 20% since 2010 because of continued neglect from Congress and from previous administrations. So you put that together, we're talking about half the number of people, roughly half the number of people trying to maintain, protect, and staff our parks that we had about 15 years ago. It's really an untenable situation. Currently, there's 433 units in the park system. 100 of them don't have superintendents right now because of hiring freezes and other barriers created by the administration. There's usually 8,000 seasonal hires done every year to staff our parks. Only 4,500 of those positions were filled this year, and we're expecting more RIF or reduction in force orders to be coming down. Now, the president's budget, his vision is a $1.2 billion cut to the Park Service. And in our calculation, if you do that, you cannot, I mean, you have to cut at least 2/3 of the national park units. That would mean selling them, turning them over to tribes or states that may not be prepared to handle them or manage them, or privatizing them. Who knows? There's no way to cut that much from the National Park Service budget without losing at least 2/3 of the units that are currently existing units. The House budget is the proposed House budget right now is not as bad, but still bad. It still slashes about 6% from the Park Service budget, and would result in the loss of another 2,000 staff across the system. And then there's just all kinds of other effects going on in relation to federal service and to some of our key legislation that protects our air, water, natural resources, the environment, the Endangered Species Act. All of them are facing existential threats at the moment. And then on top of all that, there's an attempt to basically whitewash the history that our National Park Service tells, the stories that it helps us understand about our past. And we see this as just an attempt to basically whitewash history and to tell only those stories that they feel fit the narrative of American heritage that they want portrayed. But there is some hope. On the Senate side, there's still somewhat more sanity. The budget on the Senate side that's currently in the works is calling for a flat funding for the National Park Service, which is something we'll take in this environment. And it eliminates any possibility of federal land sales or disposal, which is something that, again, this administration would like to see, and allies in the House of Representatives are trying to implement. And it finally requires that any major reductions in force or layoffs a notice to Congress would be required before you can implement that. So we see this as in this current environment as a victory. If we can get this to be the position that gets adopted, the Park Service will be spared from the worst. And so what can we do as people who care about our public lands, people who care about our local ecosystem and our environment? Well, if you have the ability to influence folks or mobilize folks who live in Republican districts, that's what we need to do right now. That side of the aisle needs to understand that the public cares about these spaces, that they want to see more resources and more staffing for these spaces, not less. And if you have the ability to again mobilize folks in those districts and get them to write letters, get them to reach out to their members of Congress, that could be pretty powerful. That's what we're spending a lot of our time with here at NPCA. I'm spending a lot of my time in the Inland Empire and Orange County, working on mobilizing folks there to engage Republican members of Congress. And that's obviously going to be critical in this period of time. Just demonstrating local support and particularly business support is another way to kind of help our parks. Let this administration, let this Congress know that people care about these places. For every $1 we invest in our national parks, we get $15 back into the economy. So the return on investment is tremendous. Just makes no sense to be cutting that off at this time. And then this last point is about, for many of us, we live here in LA. We probably are represented by a Democrat, probably someone who's fairly supportive of what we're trying to do and what we care about. But it never hurts to make sure that we're reaching out to them and letting them know that they can't just care about these issues. They need to make them a priority. They need to make it part of their platform, and they need to make it part of their efforts, of their focus as legislators. So that's basically all I have today. I want to thank you again for giving me the chance to talk about the Rim of the Valley. I hope I'm not being presumptuous. I went ahead, Snowdy, and put this information out about the hike that we're doing on November 8th. You said 9:30, so maybe, yeah, 9:30. My preferred starting location is this kind of little known trailhead. Maybe some of you folks know about it, but it's in the Simi Valley, just off the 118 freeway. And it's a great place to visit the San Jose United State Historic Park and get great vantage points of the Rim of the Valley and some of the places that we're trying to protect.
9 o'clock's fine with me. I had 9:30 in my head. It's
Yeah, well, we can hang around until, however long it takes people to show
well,
up.
we'll advertise this, way ahead of time so that people will know exactly where they're going and where we'll be. So, a couple of questions did come in, and one is, your map shows that rim is really non-contiguous. So how do you access those non-contiguous areas? How do you manage them?
Sure. Let me let's see. Just flip the map again. That's coming up. Okay, well, I'll just pull this up. Yeah, so yeah, there are definitely a lot of critical spaces kind of not included in this expansion. What these lands include are those areas where the Park Service was going to be able to actually apply resources and do work. A lot of these other places, a lot of these other spaces are either their zoning is commercial or housing, something that is not going to change. And what's left is areas where the Park Service can actually, like I said, do work on the ground. Now, having said that, the Park Service feels like this is still enough land to do, or this is still the land that has the most strategic value. The reason being that we know that, I'm sorry to talk about this earlier, but we know that these areas are places where critical wildlife corridors exist. We know that we need to protect these areas if wildlife is going to be able to disperse ultimately out into the Los Padres National Forest, for example, and also on this side, ultimately into the San Gabriel Mountains. So if we can just make sure we protect habitat, restore native habitat to these areas, it can go a long ways toward protecting those corridors and ultimately also making the region more resilient to climate change. We know that invasive species wreak havoc during wildfire seasons, and our native ecosystem is much more resilient to drought and fire than these invasive species. So as much as we can restore that to the region, then we're helping to protect it, or I wouldn't say protect it, but helping to help ameliorate some of the issues being raised by climate change. I think there's a hand up from Charles.
Yeah, Dennis, thank you so much for this presentation. Really appreciate it and appreciate the work you are doing. So much of the political news is so awful, and I appreciate you not pulling punches in talking about it and being really frank with respect to that. You talked about how the numbers I believe you used is for every dollar we invest in the national park system, $15 are generated in the economy. Do we have more detailed metrics on that we could use in our advocacy so we could talk to people who live in districts and say, here's the real economic detriment to your community by these cuts?
Yes. So short answer is yes. That data exists for every single park unit in the national park system. It's information
Including
that,
this proposed one? I mean, with respect to, well, I guess it wouldn't because it's not staffed yet, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, unfortunately, no. But we have the numbers for the existing Santa Monica Mountains NRA. That information is available on the Park Service website for now. But if it disappears, it's been archived. We know it's being stored. But yeah, you can go to the Park Service website. I think you just Google National Park economic impacts, and it'll bring you to a page where you can pull down both pull down menu. You can go to the park you want to look at, and not only does it tell you visitation numbers, it tells you the number of jobs that are generated by that park, roughly the amount of spending that people spend in the local economy around that park. So it's really fascinating and really important data. And it's just, yeah, I mean, just by every metric, it just does not make sense to cut funding from our national parks. Even if you don't necessarily, care about the environment or care about history, the economic argument is clear. So.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll explore that.
Another question that came up was, and I know also this was debated back and forth, is the Sepulveda Basin supposed to be included in these Rim of the Valley plans?
Yeah, so it was originally included along with a good section of the LA River going through the San Fernando Valley. That was removed in the latest iteration of the map. And it was just some tough negotiations. The Park Service wanted to make sure it could thoroughly defend every parcel, every acre of property that's currently in the proposed expansion. And some of those lands around there, again, whether it was zoning issues or I think there were some issues with public utilities. They just decided to cut those out rather than risk basically creating an in for folks who want to see stuff like this fail. I mean, basically the other side of the aisle doesn't like new parks and is always looking for ways to shoot them down. And so the Park Service wanted to have a really solid foundation and be able to argue for every, like I said, every acre that's in that proposed expansion.
Well, Pat is asking, you're intimate with this and the maps and things like that, and you just said that just got removed. Do we know exactly when that iteration happened?
Yes. So the map that we were looking at, and I can bring it up again if people want to see, that was created in the last time the legislation was introduced in 2023, that summer, and yeah, that's when that map. So the acreage, going back to the very beginning, the initial expansion was something like I think 400,000 acres or something like that. Got down to 200,000 acres, and then the study area was like 400,000 acres. The recommendation initially was something in the range of 200,000 acres. We're now down to 118,000 acres. Again, because folks from the other side of the aisle, folks who business interests, mining interests. There's a mining interest in the Santa Clarita Valley that's trying to the Cemex Corporation that's trying to establish a quarry there. They have powerful friends in Congress, and so slowly over the last several years or every time the legislation was introduced, the map was revised to kind of address those issues. What we have now, though, is what the Park Service feels is defensible by any measure. There's no for instance, that Cemex issue in Santa Clarita, the city of Santa Clarita says they're not going to agree to any further reductions in acreage, that they feel like they've given up enough already. So this is the map that basically we're standing our ground
on. Just a couple of questions. People were asking about the hike. Our hikes are open to everyone, so you don't have to be a member to for most of our events. So if it is limited to members, we say that specifically. So, and yes, this will be recorded and posted on our website. Our webmistress, Louise, will usually do that about a week after. So, and it just gets, a link gets posted on our webpage on the front page. Are there any other questions of Dennis? Well, I have just a quick one. What's in the works in the immediate right now? Is new legislation even going to be introduced?
Well, it has been introduced.
Oh, okay.
There is a bill.
Is that the bill that the SR, the S
Yes.
1870 and HR 3874? So
Yes.
those are introduced right now.
Correct.
You don't know how far they're going to get through the process, though, right?
We don't know. Sorry, we don't know. So I'm trying to go back, but I think my PowerPoint is frozen. But we don't know how far it's going to get. We're going to push as best we can. Usually the best opportunity is during the lame duck session at the end of a Congress, which would be basically the end of next year. That's when a lot of horse trading takes place. That's where a lot of tit for tat takes place. And that's where we've been successful in getting some new parks created. But it's also a dangerous time because it's also when a lot of really bad things for the environment and conservation-wise get introduced. So we're going to see. We're going to see what opportunities arise during that time. Like I said, even during some times when we didn't think was possible, we were able to create new parks. So we're going to keep on trying. For now, though, as I mentioned, we're kind of in a defensive mode and just trying to protect what we have because our parks are seeing threats that we haven't seen, at least in our generation.
And another thought, maybe not even a question, but I know there's a movement to add to the San Gabriel Mountains National Monument, the North Angeles section.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't really impact the rim of the valley because it's
I think that's an effort that we're following closely and we support. We feel like it complements what we're trying to do with the rim of the valley. It complements the creation of the current San Gabriel Mountains National Monument. And it would just bring, again, some additional resources and capacity to the management of these local public lands. So it's not something we're directly leading. I think the Sierra Club is taking the lead on that, but we certainly support it and think it would be beneficial to the region as well.
Yeah, the Sierra Club, and I know the California Native Plant Society is involved too. I haven't been personally involved, but I know that they're in the loop to work on that North Angeles portion of the Angeles National Forest. Any other questions or comments or thoughts? I'm assuming you will somehow let us know a call for action, or how does that get out?
Yeah, we will. Well, it's interesting. We just actually had a day of action for national parks last month, and it was highly successful in terms of bringing attention and a lot of media. We got a lot of media coverage for the threats our parks are facing. It's certainly not going to be the last action we're gonna call for. Yeah, so I'll be in touch with you, Snowdy, if there's something I feel like we can collaborate on. If you can help us create impact in Republican congressional districts, that's I think what we all need to be doing right now. If there's other opportunities for us to partner, definitely looking forward to that.
Okay, you just let us know, and I know we've certainly gotten a lot of information back and forth calling for letters and sign-ons and that kind of thing too, but
And I'm sorry, we do have
but-
social media for the campaign.
Okay.
We have a Facebook and an Instagram account, and
Okay.
a Twitter or X account.
Okay.
So you'll find it if you just look for Rim of the Valley, you'll find it. And we use that. We use those accounts to periodically post, alerts or.
Okay. I'll take a look for that.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, folks. I appreciate your attendance and hope to see you at the November hike. And I don't know, what is the Instagram account, Dennis?
The Instagram account that's a little different. It's at Rim of the Valley or ROTV Coalition. But everything else, if you just search for Rim of the Valley, the account should come up.
Okay, I do Facebook, but I haven't really done Instagram. All right, I thank you very much. And
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
I'm going to end the meeting.